Hello everybody, it's G27 and welcome back to another Mario Kart Wii quick tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to make enemy and item routes the correct way. So for this tutorial I'm going to assume that you already have a custom track made because this is just going to be covering the enemy routes and item routes only. So for this tutorial I'm going to start with a KMP file that I already have that doesn't have enemy and item routes and a collision KCL file for my track. For this tutorial, I'm going to be using KMP Cloud and Lorenzi's KMP Editor. So let's start off by opening Lorenzi's KMP Editor. It's a great program for editing the KMP of your track, especially routes. So we're going to be opening our KMP here. And by default, it will look for a file called course.kcl, which is the thing I have here. It will try to automatically load a collision file if it can find that. If it doesn't, and if you have your collision file named differently or whatever, you can hit load custom model. You can click on the course.kcl yourself and open it. It can also do a BRES. It also supports .obj, but it doesn't work for me. Probably it's just broken and you probably don't want to use OBJ. So you can use a BRES or a KCL. In this case, I'm just going to use straight up the course.kcl that I have for this custom track. You may recognize it as Blazing Subterranean that I recently worked on together with Remerin. So anyway, it's a functioning KMP that already exists. I won't be going over all of that here. We're going to be starting with the enemy paths. Lorenzi's is great for making paths, and you'll see why if you've ever done anything else, you'll never want to go back. So let's have a look at the starting point, because in this model, it's really hard to see where the starting line is. So there's the start point. I'll click on enemy paths, and I can hit Alt, or hold Alt, and then click to draw to place a point. Let's go over the things you should be doing. I won't be going about everything in detail. There will be links in the description, which will link you to wiki pages, that teach you about stuff. About the points specifically. I'll be going over the things that I find important for you to know. So we placed a point, and I also won't be going over everything in Lorenzi's. This isn't a Lorenzi's tutorial. Anyway, you can drag it around. That's one thing, and it will automatically place it on the ground. So you can change this size. Kind of interesting. Kind of important. A lot of people don't seem to do this. A lot of people actually keep the size at like 1 or 0, and that's kind of bad. Because the size is essentially what indicates the width of the road and where the CPUs are going to be driving. So if you have all your points like this, that means the CPUs are going to bunch together in the middle of the road, right where the path is. And I've seen that a couple times before, and that's not really good practice in my opinion. So just make the size, I don't know. I don't really know what good practice is. Just make it about the width of your road or something. Let's just draw the path. What you want to do is you want to hold Alt and click and drag from that point, and that will create another point that's linked to the previous one. And so what CPUs will do is they'll just try to drive anywhere in this circle. If they get anywhere in this circle, they will continue to the next point. So if your point circle is really small, if the size is really small, and the CPUs will all try to drive exactly to the center of the point. So yeah, you just keep doing that. You hit Alt and click and you drag it. So you don't need to use like super many points, especially on straight sections. You just drag a few points around. This particular KCL isn't exactly great for placing the points because there's stuff in the way. You could also just use a map model. As you can tell, the road kind of gets a bit wider here. I can change the size up a little bit. This is a straight path, so I can kind of just drag one straight down the middle. It's not really anything important here. So now we get to a split path, right? And so things become interesting here. So Lorenzi's, as far as I can tell, doesn't really support making split paths. So that's why I'm using KMP Cloud. We'll get there later. So for now, we've created our first little path, and if you have a split path in your road, hit Alt and just click somewhere else to start a new route, a new group actually. So you can see it's unlinked from the previous group, but we'll get back to that later. Hey there, it's me from the future. this is a little bit of an intermission. So Lorenzi's does actually support making split paths right away. However, in this video, I will be showing you some underlying information about how links work using KMP Cloud. But you don't need KMP Cloud to make split paths. Instead, if you have a route, you can just hold Alt and just drag out from that point to create a split path. And to connect them back together, you just drag the point directly into there. It will create and link up the routes properly. However, I still believe that there's a lot of useful information from knowing exactly how the routes link up, especially as I'll be copying the enemy paths over to the item paths. You'll have to do it manually. So keep that in mind. You can use Lorenzi's to do split paths right away, and it will work. Most of the time, there could be bugs caused by this, and I know a lot of people have problems with broken enemy and item route links, so what I will be showing you is actually important information to know if you're ever going to fix it, or if Lorenzi's causes a bug in the linking of the routes. So now we're just going to draw this one route, and I'm going to hit Alt and drag, and we're just going to do the same thing. This one, it also resets it back to size 10, so make sure to look at that. Although for this route, having a thin point, or a small size is actually kind of nice. Okay, and yeah, it's gonna come back here. So now we want to do Alt click again to just start another route, and Alt drag. Once again, I'm actually gonna make this one a little bit bigger. The contrast isn't super great to see the point size. So this program isn't amazing, but it is really good, especially compared to making your KMP only in KMP Cloud. Anyway, here we go. And these are going to combine back into one. So I'm going to just click, Alt, click, there we go. And they're going to combine back here. They're not going to be linked for now, but we're just going to leave it as is for the moment. Also, the size has gone back. So I'm actually going to make the size a little bit bigger. And obviously the size of the points depends on the width of the road, and it really depends on your custom track. So, you know, just depends on what your track looks like. I'm not really sure what the best practices are for a ramp like this, but I'm just gonna do this. There we go. Okay, and again, this doesn't actually link up, but that's okay. We're just gonna leave it as this. So these are the enemy routes, and they are placed precisely on the road. And if you think one of them isn't quite right, you can just drag it. Sometimes Lorenzi's likes to not put them on the road, and you just have to drag them again. Sometimes something's in the way and it will like stick on top. I'm not sure if I can recreate that right now. Oh, I can't even select it right now. So Lorenzi's has a few bugs sometimes, but we've got the enemy routes now set. Obviously they're not linked yet, so we're just gonna hit save at this point and close. And then also, I said it's going to be a quick tutorial. It's actually going to be a little bit longer. It's already 8 minutes. Anyway, we're going to open up KMP Cloud, and then we're going to reopen our KMP file. We don't even need the view really, but let's just click on the our enemy routes here. We haven't done the item routes, but we'll get over that in a moment. So here are the routes. You can click on them to see the groups that we just made. And remember the numbers of them, so 0, 1, 2, 3. Now we need to link them up. So we go into, click on just the enemy routes and go to properties, and you'll see a list here. It's indexed by the group number. So you have 0, 1, 2, 3. These are the groups that you see on the left side. Last and next are the groups that are linked after or before the current group. So group 0, as you see, that's this one. We're gonna fill in the things here. I think last isn't necessarily used in game, but still fill them in anyway. So group 0 links to group 1 and group 2 because, as you know, it's a split path. After group 0 comes group 1 and group 2. So these are linked to group 0. Okay. FF just means nothing, so keep that in mind. So group 1, last one, should actually say previous one, is 0. Because before group 1 comes 0. And after group 1 comes 3. and same with 2, 0, and 3. And so group 3 comes from group 1 and group 2 and goes to 0. And then 0 comes from 3. And now they should be linked up properly. If it's not, if Weems Tools gives you an error, you're gonna have to have a look at this. If you see a Weems WSST check error with linking routes, this is probably what you should be looking at, because this is linking the routes up. So now we have linked enemy routes. Great. How about item routes? So for item routes, depending on your track, you may want to do things differently, but what I tend to do is just copy the enemy routes over. Now this can be different when you're doing shortcut routes and stuff. You may need to make whole separate new groups and link them up differently, but it's all going to depend on your track. Anyway, to copy over the routes, what I tend to do is to first right-click on item routes and hit add, which creates an empty group. I do this because the next step, which is to copy group 0, go to item routes, right-click, and paste group add. Now I've copied group 0 as group 1 in item routes. These are exactly the same. So what this ends up doing is just copying over the groups. Now group 0 exists here because KMP Cloud gives me an error if I don't do it. So that's all. That's the only reason. So I'm going to copy group 1 and paste it here, copy group 2 and paste it here, copy group 3 and paste it here. And then we have 5 groups here. So now we want to delete the empty group, and now we're back to normal. So yeah, the extra group was made so that KMP Cloud doesn't crash. Essentially, I don't know why it does that. Anyway, we still want to redo the links because they're undone because we didn't set them for item routes yet. So it's 1, 2, 3, 3, 0, and then we have 3, 0, 0, 1, 2. There we go. Those are the links set up. And now we have both enemy routes and item routes, but we're not quite done yet. I'm gonna go a little bit more into detail on item routes. So I'm gonna save and close and reopen Lorenzi's. But first, actually, I'm gonna just open the wiki page for item route settings. So item routes have a bunch of different settings. They have to do with the bullet bill following the height of the route, or if the route, or if bullet bill can stop on the route points, or if the route will be a low priority route. Well, we'll see that. Let's open up our KMP again and have a look. The enemy paths are still here, and they are now linked up, as you can tell. And also at the start, they're linked up, and you can see they're now linked up. And then the enemy path, or item paths, the item paths are here too. So that's great. They're also linked up. And you could end it here, like I said. But let's say we click on a point, right? And we can check the settings here. So we can choose Bill uses gravity, Bill disregards gravity, or Bill can't stop, low priority route, or Bill can't stop and low priority route. So these are settings that really depend on your track. And these, it's up to you to choose this and to test this in-game to see if it's all properly working. However, there's a few notes and stuff on the wiki here. The wiki recommends using the default settings over an Abyss, so that the bullet bill, for some reason, this should work over an Abyss. However, in my opinion, I would still recommend using Bill disregards gravity over a gap, for the sole reason that it's probably more consistent. This reads, Bill follows the route horizontal over the ground, ignoring height if below the route, otherwise it follows the route horizontal and vertical. I would just recommend just using the bullet bill disregards gravity. Bullet bill disregards gravity means that the bullet bill will drive at the exact, or will fly at the exact same point as the route. So that can be useful over gaps. For example, what if I activate the bill over here? What if I activate the bill over here and the bill doesn't have enough height and it falls down or whatever because the routes are over here? I recommend, I would just recommend selecting certain points. If you feel like the bill might get stuck or something, Let's see, holding control and clicking on multiple points lets you select the points. And then by going with your mouse over Y and then click and dragging up, you can see I'm dragging the points up and down. So I'm moving them, for example, up. And then when I have these points selected, I can go to setting and say build disregards gravity. And now at these points, build will disregard gravity. So they'll just fly at the exact same height. The bill will fly at the exact same height as the points. So that can be useful depending on your track. This isn't really a great example track though. I just still want to explain it anyway. Also, this explains the scale value defines how far the player can control the bullet bill left and right. So in this case, I would probably want to scale the points up a little bit, because it really defines how wide the bill can go. So the player can slightly control the bill, and the size apparently defines how much the player can do that. So you just want to mess around with it and test it. So I want to show off like another thing, like the bill can't stop. I don't really have a great example on this, but for example, we don't want the bill, like, say we don't want the bill to drop you off, like, right here, for example, so that if the bill comes from here, it drops you and you fall off right away. Like, sometimes you don't want that, especially over gaps. So you can just like select all of these, for example. This is what I would do. Just select them all and then move them up a little bit. And then I want to say bill disregards gravity, and the bill can't stop. And now suddenly these points become gray. Actually, I don't want this one. There we go. These points now suddenly become gray. It just means that the bill can't stop there. Also, I messed up the point. Whoopsie. There we go. Yeah, that's it. So if you want to make a custom track and want to add item routes, there's a bit of thought that goes into it, where to use it. Especially on 90-degree turns, it can be really rough for a bill to drop you at. Like maybe we want to not have the bill drop you over here, for example. This is possible. Like, what if I just grab these and the bill can't stop? Like, for example, you should still test it. There's cases where the bill might like go and stop over here, like right before the point. Like, you still want to try to test it. This was essentially a tutorial for item routes and enemy routes to help you with making them for yourself. And like, I'm super happy that Lorenzi's KMP editor exists, because it makes editing so much easier. Like in the past, we've used like Magic Y. I've used it in my old tutorials where you make everything in KMP Cloud, and it's just really annoying. But yeah, Lorenzi's is really useful and really easy to use. So anyway, that's the end of this tutorial. It ended up actually being quite a bit longer than I expected, but I hope you learned something. I wish you all a fun time making custom tracks for Mario Kart Wii. Hopefully with improved knowledge of enemy paths and item paths. Actually, enemy paths technically also have settings, don't they? They kind of have different settings than like required mushroom use. I might as well mention it now. You can use these for yourself. You can read more about this in the links in the description. I've never really used them, and just try to mess around with it, I guess. Oh, by the way, if you have any ideas for quick tutorials in the future, then go ahead and leave them in the comments down below. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.